Hey everyone, and welcome to another Yogi Misfit session. My name is Danny Pomploon, and I'm your host. Today we have Mira Valeria on the show. Mira comes to San Francisco, the Bay Area, from Santa Fe, where she owns a yoga studio. And I met her at a training with Jason Crandall, and we kind of hit it off. And so now we have her on the show. Hi, Mira.
Hi, Danny.
How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Isn't it happy to be here?
It is.
So Mira, let's talk a little more about you. And I know I just got started saying you own a studio and you're a yoga teacher, and we practice with the same teacher. But let's hear your story. I want to hear how you got started in your yoga world.
It feels like lifetimes. I was a dancer growing up, so movement was sort of always my outlet, my channel. And I came to yoga first in college, as I've always been sort of a sensation junkie. I really like to work hard. I like to sweat. And my roommate one day came home completely soaked, just totally sopping wet. And I asked her, "What the hell happened to you?" And she said, "Oh, I just came back from this yoga class that was hot and sweaty and really hard, and I thought I was going to die." And I thought, I want that.
You're like,
try that. That sounds great.
Toying with death. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that. So the next day, I took my first Bikram class, and I loved it. I was hooked. The physicality.
Oh wait,
of the
your first class was a Bikram class?
First class was a Bikram class.
Oh man,
I know. I drank the Kool-Aid for many years.
Oh dude, it's been a great show. Thanks, Mira.
Yeah, it's a I've gone through the cycles, the waves of my thoughts and strong feelings on both sides of the fence around the Bikram practice.
Sure.
But ultimately it was really good for where I was in the moment. I had a long history with bulimia, and so coming out of the dance world, and so finding yoga was a sort of new way of being in my body and taking care of my body. And while the Bikram practice taught in this heated environment in front of mirrors wasn't really conducive to stopping to judge myself, there was this sort of underlying piece of it within the yoga itself, that was teaching me to be kinder and more compassionate with myself and treat my body in a new way. And so a few years into my Bikram practice, I started feeling like I wanted more. The spirituality piece was really starting to nag at me, and just wanting to grow my practice. So I was working in Washington, D.C. at the time. In my past life, I was an economist, and I worked in D.C. And so I was trying to find a way, something that would marry my love for helping people and doing development work with this movement-based practice. And I just stumbled upon Off the Mat into the World, the organization run by Sean Korn and Suzanne Sterling and Hala Khoury. And I did a training with them in DC. I think this was back in 2007. And that blew my mind. It completely changed everything for me. That was sort of my transition over into the Vinyasa yoga world. Mm-hmm. And everything from there just snowballed. I knew instantly that I had to find myself a Vinyasa teacher, and Sean Korn, who I really loved and resonated with, wasn't leading teacher trainings at the time. But I sort of started to follow her around for workshops and things. And at some point I came out to San Francisco to Yoga Journal to take some classes with her. And while I was out here for the conference, I ended up taking my first class ever with Rusty Wells. And I wept.
The Kool-Aid gets thicker.
The Kool-Aid gets I wept through the entire class. we chanted Shiva Shambho, and I wept through the entire class, and he kicked my butt, and I had my, oh, okay, I found my next teacher. So I practiced with Rusty for many years. I did multiple, I think I did 6 or 7 teacher trainings with him.
Wow.
And I wasn't living in the city yet. I only recently just moved to the city, as you know. But I was living here and there and everywhere, but I would come into the city for trainings, to train with Rusty. And I loved it. The chanting, the bhakti just cracked my heart open. And I was still really struggling at the time because I was working in this DC government sort of bureaucratic world that was interesting to me in some ways, but I knew it wasn't my path. And I was very much resisting the idea of becoming a yoga teacher, because I'd come from a very merit-based academic background. And I felt like what I had to be doing was it had to have a big label attached to it. And I couldn't yet see that yoga teacher, it didn't quite feel like enough. And Rusty sort of started to chip away at that. My trainings with him and the bhakti practice, and the chanting especially, started to peel back my layers. Mm-hmm. And I started to identify more and more with who I was as a yoga teacher. I was teaching yoga already. And just honoring that I really loved myself most, and I loved what I was doing most when I was stepping into that role of teacher. And then it was through Rusty ultimately that I connected with Jason Crandall. Rusty would bring Jason in to do the anatomy parts of his trainings, fittingly. And it was Jason ultimately who made me feel like, oh, I want to do this. Like, I get you. Jason for me was the opposite of Rusty. Rusty was all heart, is all heart. And for me, Rusty was sort of this teacher to me, but he was the other. Whereas Jason came in very academic, very scholarly in his approach. And I sort of had this moment of like, I'm like you, I get you. Now I know how I can do this. So that's how
the nerd side in you came out.
The nerd side of me, totally. I needed that to be fed in order to really be able to embrace it. Yeah.
Jason is a big nerd too, in the best way possible. But man, you like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, meeting Jason was changed everything and really helped me let go of that other side of things, that more merit-based side of things, and step into teaching in a way that feels really good.
And so you started teaching. How long were you teaching before you decided, okay, I want to open up a studio? And where were you? Because I mean, I know you well, but I don't even know those small details of like, I know you were basically a nomad and you were everywhere.
I was.
So
yeah.
when you first started teaching, where did you land, and how did that pan out?
When I first started teaching, I was living in Florida. Wait,
you lived in Florida? This is nice.
I was living in Florida, albeit briefly. Yeah, my dear ex-husband, he and I still remain very close. He and I bounced around for a good 8 years together. And at the time, we were living in Central Florida in New Smyrna Beach, which is a cute little beach town. It's sort of an oasis within Florida for sure. And I started teaching at Altamont Springs Yoga. My Linda Morales took me in, and I had done a hot training there, my first training with my mentor, Missy White. And I had started teaching there, and I really loved it. It felt good, but it was, I was teaching 1 or 2 classes a week sort of thing. So I was first teaching there, and then we moved to Vermont from there. And when I was teaching in Vermont, I was teaching more regularly, 4, 5, 6 classes a week sort of thing. And so I bounced around quite a bit for several years. And it was actually when I was the idea for the studio came about far before I really committed to being a teacher. I was actually in grad school in Barcelona. And I was doing a program that I knew I wasn't fit for, that wasn't right for me, but I was determined to finish it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
my sort of saving grace was going to a gym every day, taking spin classes, and going to the spa that was within the gym, because Europeans really know how to do it right.
So true.
And so I had my yoga practice. Yeah, it really is, and it's affordable.
Yeah.
um, that's just life. And so I was going to spin classes and I had my yoga, and the idea for the studio just sort of was born out of that. It was this, someday I'm going to have a yoga and cycle studio. So my studio in Santa Fe is both yoga and cycling. As you,
Cool.
yeah. And so that was, I think that was probably 2007-ish that the idea started to formulate for the studio. But it wasn't until we landed in Santa Fe in 2013, and at this point I'd been teaching for several years, that we said, "All right, let's do it. Let's open a studio."
And then Santa Fe Thrive happened.
Santa Fe Thrive was born. Yes.
How was it being a teacher and then a business owner? I mean, how was putting in the work to do that?
Well, it took a full year. And part of it is that things happen a little more slowly in New Mexico than other places. The sense of mañana is a true thing.
Okay.
But I really wanted to do it well. I knew that I didn't want to open just a sort of around the corner neighborhood yoga studio. I wanted it to be something big, and I wanted it to be an experience of a place. We have showers, we have towel service, we have lighting, we have, the special, our heating and humidifying system in the yoga room is specific to yoga. In our cycling room, everything is done. It's very nightclub-esque. We have top of the line bikes. I was very meticulous and determined to create
If anyone
things.
hasn't picked up yet, Mira's kind of a perfectionist.
Well,
I know this knowing her personally, but pick up the signs, people.
guilty. Yeah, so I wanted it done well, and so I knew that the capital investment, in order to open such a business, was gonna require. In other words, it was going to be a big investment to open, and therefore there was a lot of work that was going to have to go into the planning. And so I spent a good chunk of time developing a proper business plan, doing market research and numbers and estimates, and that's sort of where my economics background was very beneficial, just in really liking to work with numbers and spreadsheets and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so it took a good amount of time to get the business open. I liked that part of things. I like the planning. I like the research. I like the numbers. And then in May 2015, we opened the doors, and suddenly I had to manage a whole bunch of clients and like 20 plus instructors, right off the bat. And I had this feeling of like, uh-oh.
Wait a minute.
Oh, crap.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, like it doesn't feel the way I wanted it to feel. Like I remember saying that to somebody. It's like, it's not what I expected it to be. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fast forward a little bit now. Now you've moved into the city and you're teaching now, and so
Yes.
you've done a lot of work in the sense of your business, and so like actually transitioning into what I wanted to get into today with you is like, now how is your work different now, and one, what do you consider your work, quote unquote, and then how do you show up for it? Like, obviously, and the way you opened up a business is a totally different approach, I think, in where you're going now. And I think where a lot of yoga teachers are at now.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I've really transitioned. When I was in Santa Fe, most of my time went to running a studio
Sure.
and
Yeah.
managing a studio and living on MBO and doing all of these things. And now Now my time is primarily dedicated to teaching a ton of classes, which I'm so grateful to be teaching. I've landed very well. I'm very grateful for that. So I'm teaching many classes a week. And more than that, there's commute time. I live in East Bay and I'm heading into the city every day.
Mm-hmm.
There is keeping up with what you and I've talked about, what Jason always talks about, which is emails.
Mm-hmm.
You know, suddenly as a yoga teacher, you have so many emails to deal with every single day.
Endless. They're endless. And spreadsheets. Why do I have so many spreadsheets? Not even kidding.
Right?
Not even kidding. There's like 3 I have to look at daily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you do it really well, Danny. You're one of the people that really I think does it well, and I admire the way you do it.
Oh, thank you. Don't give me that much credit.
No, because it's been very interesting. It's been a very big wake up call for me transitioning. I've been in the Bay now for 4 months.
Sure.
I think, and I'm learning. I'm still getting my footing. Figuring out like what does it mean to have to do regular social media. When in Santa Fe, which is such a small town, and being a business owner, I could very easily just hide behind my business. The business was the promotion for me. I didn't have to do any of that work. And now I am living in a yoga mecca, and there are, thousands of fantastic yoga teachers all around the city. And so I'm just learning how to utilize these things like social media, which I don't do well yet, and networking, and it's a whole different set of skills.
And that's, I think, that's one part of it, right? So we've got all the things that we have to do on the back end, or we'll call it like the business end. But then how do you show up? How do you show up and do your actual work? Mm-hmm. Not just the spreadsheet. We can do spreadsheets and we can, dive behind our laptops, but how do you do the nitty gritty?
Oh yeah. The jumping into teaching, 15, 20 classes a week, which is what I've done. It takes a toll, man.
If anyone's a new teacher listening to this, I repeat, do not do what Mira and I do. We are not good examples. Nor is Jason, actually. None of us. Don't look at any of us for business advice.
That's the thing. We all do it because, I've been teaching for a long time, but being new to the city, there's a way in which I had to sort of take everything that came my way in order to start to make a mark, in order to start to get studio managers to know who I am and be willing to call me back and give me regular classes and that sort of thing. So there is this sort of the hustle is inherent, I think, into the process, but yeah, there has to be. I think there should be some rubric around like how we do it. There's got to be some better way. But sort of back to your question and just how to show up, man. And so much of it is self-care. So much of it is doing your work, like remaining a student and staying committed to your own practice. Whether that that might not look like a full-on asana practice. And more often than not, like it's not going to look like what you're teaching, but taking time to sit on your meditation cushion for 15 minutes in the mornings, or, walk through a mini sequence or that sort of thing has become, I know my home practice has really strengthened since I've arrived in the city because I don't have as much time to go to public classes as I would like to. So home practice has become my saving grace, even, like I said, even if it's just a few minutes every day. And then I think the other component of that, of really this doing your work is showing up.
And what do you consider
as a studio manager and a studio owner? So as a studio owner, I can see I would always get so frustrated with my instructors because there's seemingly this, it feels like sometimes yoga teachers don't treat they're teaching like a real job. They treat it like a luxury that they can sort of just come in and out of and sub out
Well,
their classes whenever they want to and come and go.
and a lot of
And
that
I
is
understand life is
a lot of
life.
that is because, you know, like most people are doing it part-time on the side, and so most of them are teaching, you know, here a
Yeah,
class here and a class there, and then there's, you know, other people that are, you know, doing it full time.
totally, totally. Um, but I feel like there's just in general you don't see this in other disciplines as much. People just having this sort of lighthearted approach to their work.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
100%. I get that 100%.
and so that's been it's sort of been good for me to know the other side of it, to know um, what it's like to be on the receiving side of getting the I can't come in today text, because I feel like that's helped keep me accountable
Hmm.
um, here as I take on so many classes. Um, I've tried to minimize my sub requests whenever possible, and even then I'm also developing more compassion for those teachers as they have to request subs, because I found myself in that position too, where I just wake up and my body is done. Like my body can't do it.
So what do
Um,
you say to people that are
yeah.
okay, let's say, what do you say to maybe newer teachers, or not even newer teachers, any teacher that's starting to get to that place where they're forgetting where their work is? And when I say work, for so that we're all kind of on the same page, I don't just mean like the physical part of like you showing up somewhere because you're scheduled to do it, but your actual work, like showing up, being your practice,
Mhm.
showing that to others, being authentic in that practice, not just showing up and saying these words because you have to get them out of your body, but actually 100% be like committing to be there 100% is what I feel like, you know, is part of doing your work. What do you say to the
Absolutely.
what do you say to people that are kind of like in that boat of like, all right, either I'm doing too much or I'm not doing enough, or I'm kind of figuring out what that means to me?
That's a really good question, Danny. I feel like less is more. Um, and I'm definitely one who's I've taken on too much. I am prone to overcommitting, to overpromising and under delivering, because my nature is to want to take on more and think that I can. And then I hit these walls. It's like I hit the burnout wall.
Hmm.
Um, and really, in order to be, because I think what grows a class isn't just an awesome sequence. It's not. It's having that engagement with your students, like you say. It's knowing their names. It's it's not just winging it. It's not. It's being mindful. It's really staying present
Hmm.
in your teaching and having eye contact and using your students' names and personalizing the experience. Um, which we can so easily go on autopilot when we're stretched too thin.
Sure, 100%.
Uh,
And those days happen to
and
all
so
of
I think
those days
that's
happen to
what.
all of us.
Oh yeah, totally. But the longer we stay over, stretched thin, or the longer we stay overcommitted, trying to do
Right.
too much, the more we're going to go on autopilot. So I think, really having awareness around what are your limits, and learning to say no, which is my work in the world, is learning to say no, and set boundaries around that and being committed to that. Because if you can't be committed to your no, if you can't be committed to your boundaries and self-care, if you're not going to take care of number one being you,
Right.
nobody else is going to take care of number one first.
That's true. That's a really, 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 wow. That's actually a really good takeaway. All right, Mira, I have one more question for you. You ready?
All right,
Are you ready
I'm
for it?
ready.
It's a good one. It's a good one. All right. So this was a
Okay.
suggestion from one of my previous guests, and so I'm going to start doing this pretty much every show. You have an elevator
Okay.
full of people, and you have 10 seconds before you get off. What do you say to them?
Is my time running already?
You have 10
I
you have
would
10
say,
seconds to say something to them. What do you say to them?
okay. Hi, my name is Mira. I am a very skilled yoga teacher and I love to speak
Shameless
foreign languages
shameless
and
plug.
I love to travel. Will you be my friend? Shameless plug. No, I don't know what I would say. I don't know what I would say. Oh God, that's a good question. That's gonna eat me for the rest of the day, Danny. I'm gonna call back and say, can we read
I know it's
can
good
we re-record?
because normally
That's
everyone
such
knows
a
what the format of the show is.
question.
These questions are coming now.
I love it. I love it. I don't know. I don't know what my elevator pitch would be. No, knowing me, I would be quiet. I'm super shy. I have the performer gene, like Jason talks about, but I'm very introverted.
Sure, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Mary. I think the more we have conversations like this as teachers, and and actually the people on the receiving end too, like it's nice to just be honest and keep each other, kind of keep each other honest. Sometimes you have to
Yeah,
hear it from somebody else before you really start to accept that.
definitely. Thanks so much for having me, Danny.
Yeah, for everyone that's listening out there, Mira teaches all over San Francisco, and she teaches in the East Bay, and she's got workshops and retreats and blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to put her website in the links, and as well as her social media as well. Mira, is there anything else you want to say to the listeners before we take off today?
Um, Happy Friday. Hope to see you guys in class soon, and thank you again.
So until the next Yogi Misfit session, this is Danny and Mira saying peace out.
Bye, guys.